Breakdown of the eighth tradition of Alcoholics Anonymous. Non-professionalism. It will never have a professional character, but our service center affairs may employ special workers. What is freely received, we must freely give. This great phrase is what we have adopted in the Alcoholics Anonymous community for the survival of our community, as involving money or trying to professionalize the message of Alcoholics Anonymous would burden us with problems that we could hardly remedy, since the spirituality of the program cannot be mixed with these two factors, as they distort and undermine the objective of the Alcoholics Anonymous community. We say this with compelling facts, which are that neither religion nor medical science has been able to effect recovery from alcoholism as we have. While it is true that they have also helped thousands of people regarding the problem, the recovery rate for alcoholism within our groups is high. With this, we do not mean to say that religion or science do not serve us, or that we are against these alternative recoveries. Let us remember that Alcoholics Anonymous is not the Mecca or the panacea of recovery for people with any type of addiction. We are simply an alternative that, over several years, has demonstrated that our method of recovery, when well applied and practiced, can bring results in any person. This has been recognized by both the best professionals and religious people regarding our program. Proof of this is when the psychiatrist and great thinker of humanistic psychology, Carl Gustav Jung, sent letters to Bill W. and mentioned to us the eminence of science, that what the AA program does is something wonderful, which is definitively a spiritual change that the individual must have, and that can be achieved in AA. With this, we do not want to discredit professionalism in other fields, but we accept the real fact that in our case, it does not yield results. Every time we have tried to professionalize our Step 12, the result has always been the same. Our sole purpose has been defeated. Involving the professional aspect with the AA message means having people on salary who help others in Alcoholics Anonymous, which compromises them and everything they say and do for the newcomer. This has always been so evident that very few AAs have ever done Step 12 work in exchange for any type of financial remuneration. Despite this evidence, it is true that few topics have sparked more disputes within our community than that of professionalism. We must remain in an amateur situation, that is, without receiving any type of material remuneration to preserve the spiritual aspect of the program. Those in charge, for example, of sweeping the floor, the cooks who prepare certain food, the secretaries of the offices, the writers of books, all of them have been the subject of strong attacks because, according to their critics, they were making money at the expense of Alcoholics Anonymous, without taking into account that these were not absolute Step 12 jobs. The critics accused our workers of being AA professionals, who often took on the thankless tasks that no one else wanted or could do. Today, we can see certain rehabilitation clinics, this type of case, in which the AA message has been professionalized, and that this is not a situation foreign to our times, since in the beginnings of Alcoholics Anonymous, there was also a greater furor when AA members began to run rest homes and convalescent farms for alcoholics and addicts. When some accepted salaried positions in the industry as personnel directors responsible for the problem of alcoholism among employees and others as patients in the alcoholism wards, and when others dedicated themselves to the field of education about alcoholism. In all these cases, and many others, it was claimed that the experience and knowledge of AA were being sold for money, and therefore these people were also professionals. However, a clear dividing line could finally be seen between professionalism and non-professionalism when we agreed that the work of passing the message could not be done in exchange for money. We made a wise decision. However, there are activities or services that within the community cannot be resolved by ourselves, and we had to turn to professionals to carry them out. Let's suppose that our group, area, or district requires a person to answer calls and messages, emails that come in asking for information about AA. It would have to be for a minimum of 8 hours, where one person has to be in charge of this. That is to say, we would need a secretary who had administrative and accounting knowledge to carry out this simple task, since no AA member could take on the task, as we all have responsibilities and duties. Let us remember that Alcoholics Anonymous does not absorb its members completely. In fact, what we desire is for you to succeed in all areas of your life, both spiritually, emotionally, and materially. Having this need for a person to be attentive to phone calls, emails, or letters requesting information, we must hire the professional services of a person who will be responsible for these tasks. Or alternatively, if we found an alcoholic, they would receive a payment equal to what we would have to give a non-alcoholic for the same work. The position is not to do Step 12 work, but to facilitate Step 12 work. It was not just a simple matter of special services. AA could not function without special paid workers. However, on many occasions there are ultra-conservative alcoholics who think that it is professionalism on the part of AA, and that any faithful servant performing this type of task believed that this type of service was an unnecessary evil for our community, that we were wasting resources that could well be used for other, more important things. For many years, these ideas persisted. Then we realized that a very hard-working secretary who answered the phone dozens of times a day, who listened to 20 crying wives, who made arrangements to hospitalize 10 beginners and to get them sponsors, and that he treated in a very diplomatic way the irate drunk who complained about how she did her job and how excessive her salary was, she could hardly be considered a professional of AA. She was not professionalizing Step 12, she was simply facilitating it. She was contributing to ensure that the man who came to our door had the opportunity he deserved. The volunteers and members of this committee could be of great utility, but it could not be expected that they would perform these tasks day after day. It should be emphasized that the professionals who exercise or provide us a service in the AA community are well paid and earn their salary. These people are professionals, but they are not professionals of AA. Perhaps every member of Alcoholics Anonymous, upon seeing that forever in their heart, is the vague fear that one day they will exploit our name for personal profit. The mere insinuation of such a thing usually unleashes a hurricane, and we have seen that hurricanes attack with equal fury the just and the unjust. They are never reasonable. We must analyze this very delicate part that causes many of us discomfort and shame. But it is a reality that has been lived throughout the years of AA. Perhaps not by us, but we have seen it in the personal desires of others. All rehabilitation clinics and some psychological work for the recovery of alcoholism and drug addiction work with the 12 steps of AA, and many of these works have always been tempted to use the name of Alcoholics Anonymous for publicity purposes to raise funds. Treatment farms, educational companies, state legislatures, and commissions published the fact that they had members of Alcoholics Anonymous at their service with total naivety. The Alcoholics Anonymous members who worked in these companies recklessly broke their anonymity by advertising for their favorite project. For this reason, some good causes and all their associates were subjected to unfair criticism from Alcoholics Anonymous groups. In most cases, these attacks were preceded by the cry, "Professionalism. This man is making money," at the expense of Alcoholics Anonymous. However, none of them had been hired to do the work of Step 12 of AA. In these cases, the violation was not professionalism, it was breaking anonymity. We realize that we have no right, and there is no need to discourage the AAs who wish to work as individuals in these broad fields. In fact, prohibiting it would be an antisocial gesture. We cannot declare that Alcoholics Anonymous is such a closed society that we keep our experience and our knowledge as a state secret. If a member of Alcoholics Anonymous as an individual can become a better researcher, educator, personnel manager, why not let him be? Everyone wins and we lose nothing. It is true that some of the projects to which AA members have been linked have been poorly conceived, but that has nothing to do with the principle we are discussing. Considering, it is the exciting series of events from which the tradition of non-professionalism of Alcoholics Anonymous has emerged. In summary, this tradition leaves us the teaching that we as Alcoholics Anonymous should not professionalize the message of AA. We will remain in our amateur situation, that is, we will not charge for this, since the spiritual and altruistic aspect would be lost. However, we can achieve hiring professional services from a person whether they belong to our community or not, but they will be well compensated for the work that helps us convey the message. While it is true that many have come individually to professionalize the Alcoholics Anonymous program, we must be tolerant and prudent with this type of individuals, since while it is true that it is not morally, ethically correct for some purist alcoholics, their ultimate goal at the end of the day is to help people who are sunk in this perverse disease. We must pay attention to ourselves and stop defending principles that do not even belong to us. Sometimes the zeal for principles causes tyranny and repulsion among members. Let us remember that we all have the right to make mistakes, but we leave the decision to time and, of course, goodbye. Thank you for joining us on this spiritual journey toward recovery. If you have found value in our content and would like to continue exploring topics related to Alcoholics Anonymous and personal transformation, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications to receive alerts for our new videos. Together, we can build a community of support and hope. Until next time, and take care.